The NBA's preseason slate of games tips off tonight, people. It's very exciting for all of us. But with only 11 days left till opening night, still so many questions and concerns heading into the most unconventional season in the 75-year history of the association. On Thursday, the U.S. set a record for COVID-19 related fatalities for the second day in a row, surpassing 3,300 deaths. There were also around 220,000 new cases reported yesterday in this country. There's some light at the end of the tunnel thanks to vaccines that are being developed and already administered in other countries. Yesterday, an FDA panel granted emergency use authorization for a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and a German partner company. We could see the first COVID vaccinations in America by early next week. Now, Brian, you wrote about how the NBA is crafting policy to manage widespread use of COVID vaccines. What are some of the biggest question marks at this point? Because it is such a complex issue.
Yeah, this is another unprecedented challenge for the NBA to deal with. Just based on the timing of everything, Rachel, the NBA has got a good chance to be the first pro league to try to have to deal with a policy across its player population. We don't know when that might be available. The NBA was very clear in me talking to them. They're not looking to jump the line. They realize that they've got to wait and make sure that everybody is taken care of in front of them. That said, there are health professionals out there who are saying that giving it to professional athletes earlier in this timetable might make some sense because it can show people in the public who are worried about this that it's safe and effective. The problem is they've got to show the players that it's safe and effective. And you've also got to consider, do you mandate this? Do you say players have to get this vaccine? There's other health protocols that the league does, whether it's having drug testing, whether it's getting an EKG, that they mandate that you have. This is going to be very delicate and obviously could have a big impact on this season.
Paul, if it were you, would you want to take this vaccine? Where are you on this?
I'm kind of split in between. First, I need to get more information on this. Who were tested first and what was the outcome? Is it 100% effective? Is it 70, 50% effective? There's so many questions that have to be asked, I believe, before you could just go in and say, hey, we have a vaccine for a virus. Who are the people who got tested first that said it's quite effective? I'm sure there were, or it wouldn't be passed at this point. But who set that example? So I'm kind of 50-50 on it right now. And then think about the players or whose family who have had COVID and recovered from it. Do they feel like a vaccine is even necessary? I know some people recover, some people don't. So I'm really split on it right now.
Yeah, that issue is complicated, right? Because people who have already had COVID, they have antibodies. We can test for that, so we know that that's true. What we don't know, because it's such a new virus, we don't know how long those antibodies protect you. There are some cases, there have been some in this country and around the world, where people have reinfection, where they thought that they were protected because of their antibodies, but there is a different infection. They've actually genome tested, and there's a different strain of the virus that is affecting them. So that is a question mark. Earlier this week, Brian, we discussed the protocols the NBA is implementing to minimize the rise of infection for players, coaches, staff, refrain from going to restaurants, bars, large family gatherings. This really is impacting players' day-to-day lives. But you do have more than 100 players who've tested positive for COVID since the lead up to the Orlando bubble. League only has around 500 players to begin with. How do you think players who have already tested positive, Brian, and who have these antibodies are going to react to being so limited in their daily lives?
This is exactly it, Rachel. And, it's probably way more than 100 because the NBA has announced 100 positive tests between the restart back in the summer and the beginning of training camp now. That doesn't include the players who contracted the virus during the shutdown and also in the offseason. And you talk to trainers and other people who work with players' agents, they think that number is at least double, maybe more. They think that upwards of 40% of the league has maybe dealt with it. And so you're telling people who probably have been going to nightclubs and restaurants because they feel safe that they can't do that. And this is just a thorny issue. And then there's this, Rachel. In the initial trials of this vaccine, and I'm getting this from talking to doctors, team doctors, some people get sick, especially with the second shot for a day or two. And if a player already has antibodies and doesn't feel he needs to take it, he may not want to get a shot that's going to get him sick for even a day or two. And then there's the issue that you can still possibly carry the virus even if you've had the vaccine. So they may ask players to continue wearing masks and socially distance even after having the vaccine. And that's going to be a tough sell. And I think what Paul just described, that 50-50 mentality, that's what I'm hearing from agents and teams, that they are going to really have to educate their players to convince them to partake in this wholesale.
Paul, what do you
that's
think?
the biggest thing, education. And I don't.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, what do you think the dynamic is going to be in the locker room, Paul? Because we've seen in other sports, in baseball and football, there is a sense of responsibility to each other, right? No one wants to bring this into the locker room, infect other people, affect other people's lives and families. But also, guys are used to having personal freedom. So how much responsibility do you think players will feel to each other or hold each other accountable for? What's that dynamic like?
Well, you got to understand right now in the current situation that we're in, a lot of bars and restaurants are open anyway right now to the public. You know, I live here. I live here in California. I think the biggest adjustment may be like, okay, the grocery store, or just being around family and friends. And the players, you know, they're going to be around each other every day, and they're going to abide by the same rules anyway. You know, I know the league is saying, no, you can't go here, but you got to understand, you can't do those things already, especially here. I'm here in California, Los Angeles, New York, places like New York. I can understand it's different in Florida, Atlanta, and maybe Texas. You know, they'll have to make an adjustment in those states. But for the most part, a lot of these states are closed. So the biggest adjustment is just, you know, finding entertainment within your home, which we've already been doing. We've already made the adjustment for the most part. And so, you know, that part will be easy. It's just, you know, getting food, grocery store running. I do a lot of grocery store running myself. So if you're telling me I can't go to the grocery store, we have apps out here these days. You can order your groceries.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.